past time, and I think we should begin. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this concept talk called Sales Pro. We have with us on the panel today Preeta Dubey, we have Suhas Kulkarni, we have Deepan Vaishnav, and we have Milind Kher. Preeta is one of India's leading sales coaches and sales trainers, and she prefers to say that I am a salesperson. And I love every minute of selling, and I enjoy selling, and I am in sales, and I love doing everything that is part of sales. So that's what I'd say about Preeta in her introduction. Deepan is it's got a very unique way to introduce himself in a 3x3 matrix. He says, I'm from automobiles, insurance, and sales, and I'm in training. And Deepan, correct me.
True that, sir. Training, sales training, and then HR.
Sales training and then HR. So that's his 3x3 matrix. Milind Kher is certified also. Everybody's certified in extended disc over here. Milind is also certified with us very early on when we started the business. Milind works very extensively with the human mind. He loves working on NLP, on emotional intelligence. He, of course, uses extended disc along with his wife in their company, Hospitality Quorum. And he does a lot of good work in reaching out to people and helping people to get better through everything that they're negotiating in life. Suhas is a business head with a large multinational company. He's worked as managing director and director in his earlier companies, and today he's looking after Asia Pacific. Am I right, Suhas? APAC?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, he's looking after Asia Pacific and helping European companies to set up distribution and logistics in this region. And Suhas, I know, is leading from the front. He can very well, I think, delegate more than 50% of the things that he does himself to people in his team. But in these situations, he is showing true initiative and doing a lot of things on his own. And he and me talk a lot offline. So I know some of those things I cannot share, some of the things I will leave to him to share when he wants to share. But that's the panel we have with us today. And I'm going to start by asking questions. And my first question is to you, Preeta. Preeta, you have seen the sales industry very, very, very closely from the pre-pandemic days to now. And there has been a lot of change, and you know it, and I know it. And what are some of the key things that have changed in terms of the way salespeople are approaching themselves and their profession?
All right. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this panel discussion. And this is a very interesting question that you have asked, Manveer, because I would like to answer it a little differently. One aspect is, first we have to understand that what has changed in sales, and then we can probably I'll be able to explain then therefore how the salespeople are doing it differently. The first and foremost thing that has changed from the pre-COVID to the post-COVID, or rather during this time, we still can't say post-COVID yet. During this time, or the new normal that we have been talking about, something that has changed is the consumers' buying behavior. That has changed dramatically. Earlier, there were many things. It was very easy for us as consumers to walk into a store, to go to some place and look at stuff, that touch and feel thing, and all that stuff used to happen. But now, because of the fear and the threat of this virus and the hygiene aspects and social distancing and everything put together, consumers' buying behavior has changed. Now consumers are wanting how, as an organization, whether you are selling a product or a service, consumer is expecting how you can deliver it to me in the most hygienic way, so that I do not have to step out quite often. Okay. Now, considering if this is what the consumer's buying behavior is, then now the sales professional, the way they are in every aspect has changed. Now, let me give you certain examples. We all understand sales process. Now, in the sales process, the process as the, or if we want to look at it from a sales funnel point of view, everything remains the same. We are not, nothing can be skipped by a sales professional.
True.
What has changed is how now they are approaching each of these processes. So how
Okay.
am I prospecting now? Earlier, if it was easier for me to go building by building and collect all the names and contact number of the concerned person and then call with them. Gone are those times. I cannot. So now,
True.
from prospecting, offline, I have to move in that prospecting process to online. Another thing that has changed, and which the salespeople are finding a big challenge in today's time. We all are excellent at building rapport face to face.
True, true,
But
true.
now when I have to build that rapport from across the laptop, it is causing me a lot of problem because the customers attention span is low. There are a lot of distractions. So how do I hold on to that? And ice breaking is important. Getting that customer to a comfort zone is important before I can move. So these
Sure.
are certain changes. The whole process remains the same, but the way
Right.
of approaching each of these steps has changed, and everything now is happening online because the consumers buying behavior has changed.
All right, I'm going to hold on to some of the things that you said, Preetha, and come back to you in a while, but I'm going to bounce this off to Milind. Milind, you worked a lot and you're still working a lot with the human mind. And I know you have a background in sales. You worked with companies like ITC and you've helped companies to set up distribution channels before you moved into training and development. And now you're working extensively with emotional intelligence, NLP, and so on and so forth. Some of the things that Preetha said are bound to create challenges for the salesperson. Like she said, how do you do prospecting online? How do you build rapport online? And I know you are trying very hard to integrate this online with the mind thing. So can you tell us, what are the suggestions? What are the solutions you think a salesperson should look forward to when he's trying to do this prospecting and building rapport online?
Yeah, so I gave thanks for asking me this, Manveer. I gave this a deep thought, and I came up with an acronym which is SEAT. SEAT, the tire makers.
Yes.
Okay, so what I believe is that the 4 components which are very vital for anybody who is performing a sales function is confidence, empathy, adaptability, and trust. So I think confidence has got a huge contagion. When a salesperson are themselves confident, and this triggers the mirror neurons in their customers, and the contagion of that confidence spreads to the customer, so the customer gets primed to receive whatever the person has to say. Okay, and empathy, of course, is an integral part of the thing. What I've noticed nowadays is that the credit card companies and the banks and all, they're getting much softer in their communication, and they're getting much more people friendly, and they're trying to get a lot of insight into what the customers right now going through and providing services that relate to that. Even stuff like how they do their credit card deliveries, how they take the acknowledgement and all that. So there's a lot of sensitivity involved in that. And adaptability, of course, now since everything has gone online, people need to be tech savvy. People need to be able to communicate through digital media in a big way.
Sure.
And trustworthiness, I think, is now the core of it all. I mean, everything else is secondary. We always want to do business with the people that we trust. So I think building trust is a big thing, and we have to use all the modalities available to us to be able to build that trust. So that's how I would look at it as a snapshot.
Sure, that's beautifully put in SEAT. I don't know how MRF and the others would react to that, but that's a very, very nice acronym, and well said, Milind. Deepan, quickly coming to you. You have worked very extensively in, and who's this disturbing me? All right. you have worked very extensively in insurance, in automotive industry, and in the sales industry, and you've also done a lot of training. Right now, you're doing a lot of coaching, and you're doing a lot of mentoring and development of people.
True.
Are you seeing any of these changes in terms of people approaching you for things differently than what you used to do earlier?
Definitely.
Yep. Go ahead, Deepan. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. Thank you, first of all, for
Yeah.
getting me here and for that question. Surely there is a big difference, as Preetha rightly mentioned, that the buyer behavior. Now, when it is about buyer, it is not only about buyer of a product, but any kind of transactions where it is a selling and buying, whether it's a service or anything, there is a complete change.
Correct.
And so therefore the paradigm has changed completely. So the manner in which we would deal with clients earlier, and they in turn would deal with their clients earlier, is different, very different. So there is no rocket science to say that everything is shifted online, and therefore the manner in which we talk to people, we approach, we communicate with them is changing. What is more important here I want to highlight is, we, all of us, there is so much talk about a change. There is so much talk about closing down, lockdown, and so it kind of builds on a lot of anxiety amongst people.
Sure.
I think the message I would like to share with others is the how you do has changed a little bit. What you do has not changed.
Well said.
People will buy, we will sell. So that is a given. Now, if we just take it in our stride, and say that I was earlier I used to call, I will call today to fix up an appointment, right? Earlier I would say, when can I come to your office, and I know ask the address here. Okay, when can we connect over a call? Can I share with you, instead of showing something, I can share a short video or something. So that has changed a little bit. So I think people need to realize that yes, there is a change, but there's a slight change, and we just need to adapt to that by way of learning the new skills required, and that's about it. There is really no rocket science in that. But yes, surely there is a difference in the way people are approaching it now, and so some part is slightly fluid. People are still exploring how to part, but gradually we are all settling into it.
Do you think people are prepared for this, Deepan? Do you think the sales people are actually prepared for this shift?
Initially, no, absolutely not. Initially, it was not, right? I remember in India, we had March, and so April was a complete shocker. Everybody was like, so there were mixed feelings. On some set of people said, okay, I don't know what's going to happen now. The another set of people said, okay, this is a passing phase, a few weeks, and we'll be back to normal. But then automotive had zero sales in April. Pharma had started facing a lot of trouble. The common understanding is that pharma essential services, so business continues as usual, but that's not the case, because the consumption has gone down. The non-critical treatment has gone down, so the consumption has gone down. Supply chain is under stress, so products are not available, so pharma is under. So everybody was under stress, and it was only in May that people started realizing that we need to do something different.
Correct.
So are they prepared? No, they are not. Are they getting there? They are. They are exploring a lot more different avenues to reach out to people, to talk to people. Pharma is a very, very peculiar thing. All of us know that pharma, the typical sales is a medical rep meets the doctor face to face. Now that's not happening. Okay. So what? You can't have a doctor, receiving telephone calls or video calls from 4,000 companies in India, or from thousands anywhere else in the world. So there has to be different ways. So people are exploring newer ways. They are making some progress. But I think in a few weeks, a few months, we'll find a comfortable, nice, sweet spot to settle in.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much, Suhas. I need to get you into the discussion, and I know, Suhas, that you are doing things very differently, and you've been doing things very differently from very early on. As soon as this thing happened, I know you took the bull by the horns, and you kind of went on the front foot. You refused to play a back foot game. Could you tell us some of the things that you did specifically, and how that has made a difference in the last 2 or 3 months to your business, Suhas?
Yeah. So thank you, Manvir. So first of all, thanks for creating this forum. Very good discussion. So from a personal point of view, working from home is not new to me. I've been working from home for the last 5 years. So even
Lucky
when the
you.
pandemic started. Yeah, so even when the pandemic started and people said we had to work from home, there was nothing new. Uh, it was normal for me, and that is a new normal now for most of the people. Having said that, I think the industry that we are in, where we are selling capital machineries, and these are really projects where we involve with customers or prospects. I think one of the key things that we found was that the supply chain was being more localized, and therefore they were looking at partners who were more closer to them. And that's where I think we connected quite well. The biggest thing is because we were able to do this across Asia, even during the pandemic. I would like to share that we were able to interview and recruit people. I've not even met some of my team members that I recruited in the last 3 months, but we've
Wow.
got them. We've got them up and running, and they're performing right now because we use the time to also train them. Because upskilling was the biggest thing that people wanted to understand how they could do it. But for a salesperson, I think the biggest thing is when you have times like this, you allow this or use this time to also train them on the more benefits and nuances of the game. And I think I would like to take a word which Deepan also used. And when we are talking about our connect with our customers and prospects, we are actually building partnerships. And it's not just a single. Yeah. So building partnership is the game for us, and using different ways of connecting with them was important for us. Just like Deepan said, using webinars, also connecting with them and showing live demonstrations, because machines are actually quite expensive and take a lot of time for demonstration. But then using the simplest of technology, which is your mobile phone, and putting in front of a machine and having that relate to the customer was the best thing that we could do. And that has given us quite good results and allowed the customer also to understand the technology much more closely. Yeah.
So do you think in terms of what Milind said, in terms of the adaptability and the trust, do you think those have played a significant role as far as your customers' acceptance of your propositions have been? So this capital intensive machinery, expensive stuff, the touch and feel is not there. They can't run it themselves. You can't invite them to your plant. You can't do any of those things that you would traditionally do in such cases. Do you think the adaptability and the trust that you have established has worked in your favor, Suhas?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I would say yes. And there still remains a time when we still say you should come and see the machine, because it's a pretty capital extensive machine and
Correct.
it's a huge equipment. And when the pandemic started, we were saying this on every call. But as the pandemic extended, we could realize that this is not going to happen. People are not going to travel. International travel at least is not going to start until I think November, even October or November, right? So
possibly, yes.
That's the same for me. So it's not going to happen. So what is the next best thing you could do is give a personal experience of having a touch and feel, and saying, and this is what you get into, and what will happen if you would use it this way, and this is the result that you get, right? So it's a very customized, focused discussion with them, and a customized, focused using the digital and audio and visual aspects. So connecting with them on that ground and explaining to them was actually helping. On the other hand, I would say it has given us a lot of benefit as well, because now customers were actually focusing during a call. Earlier on, when you have a face-to-face meeting, people could avoid, jump out of a room, go out for a coffee break. Today, when you're having like we are having a call right now,
sure,
right? So it's a one-on-one, almost one-on-one, although there are a lot of people in the room. And it's very very intense and very custom and very focused, I would say, discussion. So I think the discussions have become more focused right now, and that has allowed us to also discuss things in very much detail. And it's not just like it used to be earlier. Okay, why don't you come over tomorrow and let's discuss this across the table? That is not going to happen. This is across the screen now.
Do you think this is going to make the salespeople lazy after all this is over, Suhas? Because everything is now wanting to be done online. They don't have to go. They don't have to travel. They don't have to meet. They don't have to do all that. Do you think it's going to make them lazy?
On the other hand, what has happened, Manvir, is we have become more prepared because you don't know when the customer is free now. And we would like to have a personal call with him. He sometimes says, I'm free at 9 p.m. in the evening, which is perfect for me because I have to connect with my European counterpart and somebody in Southeast Asia or Asia. So the timing is also convenient. So I think we are prepared more, and we are now more or less working 24/7 instead of just the 9 to 5 thing and you come back and you drop your bag. So I think we are more prepared now, and we are more keen.
Sure. Thanks so much. Preeta, picking up from what Suhas has said in terms of, the preparedness, how do you think in terms of the consumer product industry, the salesperson needs to show his preparedness and actually be prepared for this extended working hours? Over to you, Preeta.
All right, so I have been, coaching such people, and I've been receiving such requests from organizations also to kind of reskill their people on this aspect of how do you, and especially when it comes to consumer products, where like everybody's saying, like Suhas also mentioned that earlier it was easier for people to say, come down and see this, and currently this is not happening. Now, something which I felt, you asked a question of whether they're going to get lazy. I don't think so. That is definitely not happening, which I agree with Suhas on what he mentioned. And it's all about when we're talking about preparedness. Now, there are the first and foremost preparedness that I feel every salesperson in the current time should do is from the mind. So getting that acceptance level that things have changed, and the way I have to work has changed. So preparing from the mind is the first and foremost thing. And the second concept, which earlier we were probably taking it a little lightly or taking for granted, and that is the time. It is the today's time calls for even a better time management tool that will help me balance it out, because there is a possibility in the current time, and this is not only with sales, everyone is experiencing an extended working hours. Sure. Now, whenever, because of the work from home, if we have to get into an extended working hour, it is very important that we use a very, very good time management tool that helps us finish that day's work on that day. And be prepared. Again, I said the preparation has to first come from the mind. Gone are those days when I say that my office hours is only from 9 to 5. So post 5, I will not receive. That mental preparation has to first come.
Correct. Preeta, you know that we have a sales capacity assessment. You have recently been certified and you started using it and you've liked it. How do you think the assessment has helped you in coaching the people whom you worked with, as far as linking the assessment with everything that you have said so far?
Well, I think first and foremost, this assessment is one of the best things that can happen to any sales professional and their leaders. I, though, first of all, strongly recommend people to undergo this assessment. Now, as a coach, let me tell you, whenever I have coached a sales professional, it's like a rule for me that before the coaching, you have to go through this particular assessment now. The benefit of this assessment is that, as I said, the preparation from the mind, the beauty of this assessment is the competencies. I was telling earlier also, the process remains the same. Like Deepan also was saying that, the what remains the same, the how has changed. Now, in order to do the how well, we need the mindset. We need the correct mindsets to do that how well. And how well am I therefore being able to do that particular process with that competency? And this is the beauty of this assessment, that it highlights whether a sales professional has that mindset or not. And that is very critical. And for a coach, it helps, because then I can work, we can, as a coach, we understand that where the gap is. Even the coachee, the individual understands where that gap is. So probably the sales professional was struggling for days long that what am I doing wrong? But
Correct.
with this assessment, it gets so clear to the sales professional, oh my God, this is where my gap is. And I have been probably focusing on a very wrong area, or I was unnecessarily being too harsh on myself. So this is where the assessment helps. I recommend this to everyone.
Thank you so much. Preeta, I know you have just recently used it and you have also shared your feedback with me. So thank you. I won't get into any specifics on that because that's confidential. So we leave that over there. Deepan, I'm also
Yes, sir.
going to pick up from what Preeta has said about the assessment and the tool. And you have also spoken to me on a one-on-one when we had a series of discussions on the sales assessment. You remember you had an interview with me.
Yes, I
You
remember.
spoke about it. And of course, you are now very much part of the system. Is there something specific about the sales assessment that has appealed to you in the context of what is happening right now? And how do you think an organization that is dealing in either insurance, pharma, or automotive can use this product to, like what Suhas said, train their people at this point of time?
So I think, I would second what Suhas said, and more than that, I would second what Preeta said, that this is a tool which is extremely powerful. Uh, Whether I use it as a coach or whether I'm using it with the sales teams, this tool very clearly identifies, or helps people identify what aspect about the, whatever I'm doing in the sales process, I need to fix it. See, sales is a process that we do, and the result or the outcome is a consequence of doing things right. All right. So what is it that, so everybody is good at, somebody is good at something, somebody is good at something else. And many times, what we see commonly, people say, they have a very vague understanding about what is right, what is not wrong. I have seen managers say, you know what, you're not closing well. Many times in certain industries, a certain kind of a product or selling, closing is not so important. It is only a consequence if you did the right things first. If you ask the right questions, if you understood the needs of the client very well, if that process is done well, then closing or getting the sales is only an outcome or a consequence of that.
Sure.
So this assessment actually helps me understand who needs what in terms of training input and what kind of coaching this person needs. So as Preeta said, as a coach, the first prerequisite is do this assessment. And what I do is I do this assessment, plus I do the things, the extended disc, personal analysis. And when I marry the two, I know exactly how it works in a coaching situation. And especially if it's a sales professional, I insist I do the sales capacity assessment and the psychometric profiling. And then it helps me marry the two. Specific to industry, I mean, this can be anywhere. The same approach can be, but the what aspect about the process will vary from one industry to the other. But the entire mechanism is consistent.
Sure. Thank you so much, Deepan. I know that you're doing some very good work with the understanding and the linking of these two products, and you're using them very well. So I know that, and that's why I asked you. I wanted to bring this forward to our users. There's a person called Sandeep who's asked a question, and it's to you, Deepan. And I'm going to just not wait for the questioner, but it's repeated the question. So I'm going to say, is this a new sales approach, industry agnostic? And I'm not sure I understood the question, but Sandeep, this is not a new sales approach. This is a sales tool that we're talking about. Our company, Extended Disc and Finks, has launched a product called the Sales Capacity Assessment. There is no new sales approach. Every industry has its own sales approach and the way in which they approach sales to their market and to their customers. We are trying to see, and we're trying to look from and get experience and expertise from our panel on what has changed in the sales industry per se during this period. Can they help everybody else to see what are those changes through their experience, and what is the future ahead? If you we would allow you to unmute and ask your question in detail a little more if your question isn't already answered. I'm not too sure I understand the meaning of the word agnostic at the end, but I hope I have been able to shed some light on your question. I want to come back to Suhas, and I want to ask Suhas a question. Suhas, you said you don't think travel and international travel is going to open up at least till October, November, maybe even December, and possibly this year will just go like that.
Yep.
All right. Do you think after this happens, maybe October, November, December, do you think the frequency would be of sales and sales cycles would be as much as it was pre? Because now we've gotten used to doing things in a certain way. Do you think there would be a balance between the two? Or do you think it will just continue digitally, electronically, the way we're doing it now?
Yeah, I mean, in our industry, we are in the B2B industry more rather than the B2C industry. So in the B2B industry, typically, yes, you need to have a closer relationship or contact. And to establish that, most of the time, you would have sales people traveling most of the time out of their suitcase, right? So creating relationship. But today, the norms have changed to create relationship. People identify with data. People identify with specific inputs given to them, even before you come and meet them. So I think in that sense, today the new norm will change, and it will mean you'll have more specific meetings. I have seen. I was in a workshop recently last month, and I've seen and heard that even large M&As have happened during this COVID times. And M&As earlier used to not happen, and there was one particular case where you had one businessman saying, "Let's wait for this to end." But then 2 months down the line, he realized this is not going to end, and he wanted to have an M&A to be done. And of course, I'm talking about the partners from the Big Four, one of the Big Four companies, who helped them complete the M&A online. So it was a shake off, handshake online, and it was one of the best mergers that happened.
Wow.
So I think in the new norm, things will change. For sure, we will plan much better. It will not be just jump on a plane and be in front of your table. It will be a more specific discussion, especially for projects like ours. And it makes more sense because now you are using all the available instruments given to you thanks to this COVID period. Yeah.
True. Milind, one quick question to you before we have an open round of Q&A from the participants or anybody else who would like to ask a question, including the panel. Milind, are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah. All right. Okay, good. Excellent. You are dealing with trainers, you're dealing with coaches, you're coaching coaches, you're coaching trainers, you're coaching also salespeople. You're mentoring and developing them. And I know you have a very active interest in ensuring that people get better. Is there any specific thing you have noticed as a challenge that people are facing in terms of they're getting their mind attuned to this situation? And
yeah, I think one huge challenge.
What are you suggesting to them?
Yeah. Manveer, I think one huge challenge that everybody is facing is being able to get the attention of the potential customer. And the second thing is to be able to get a response. Now, as a result of not being able to really get the attention and not able to get a response, there's a lot of demoralization that is happening. And that is why you find a lot of people have almost gone into their shells. So it's very important for me as a coach to be able to perk up the confidence of these people, to be able to spend quality time with them, understanding what their anxieties and fears are, because there is tremendous insecurity and anxiety because for the simple reason that people cannot go across to somebody's office and have a talk across the table with them. Getting that attention span has become very, very critical. So that is something which I think definitely needs to be worked on, and the emotional and the mental aspects of the morale, the motivation, the inspiration, all that still needs a lot of space to be covered. On the flip side, I will say that this is offering a sterling opportunity for branding, because people who have carved out a niche for themselves, now it sticks out very clearly. So if somebody is a sales coach, you know about it today. if somebody is an emotional intelligence specialist, you know about it today. So I think there is a positive side to everything also. It's time for people to understand their strengths. And as Gary Keller said, the one thing, I think it's important for people to focus on the one thing that drives them. So that's how I'd look at it.
Sure. And I'm going to have one question which I'm going to take everybody's opinions from, starting with Preeta. Preeta, in the early days, we used to say that, you know, when you go to a customer and you're sitting and talking across the table with him, you can observe his body language, his nonverbal communication. You can get signals from the way he talks, the way he looks at you, how close you are, how far you are, whether it's going to lead somewhere, not going to lead somewhere. Do you think that has changed?
Yes, of course, that has changed because
Okay.
across the table, it is far easier to see even the pores on the skin, which I cannot right now see whether the pores are getting red or whether the person is really did a very slight, smirk. I will not even understand that, which otherwise it is very easier for me to understand. At the same time, something that I always tell most of the sales professionals is, I understand that we have to do as per the customer's convenience. Now, many times nowadays it has also happened that the customer is not very comfortable coming on a video call. So the sales professionals have to kind of depend a lot on the telephonic call. But therefore, again, the reskilling need of vocal communication, a very, very critical aspect has now converted. We have to be, as a salesperson, I have to work on my vocals because that is what the person can also hear, my customer, because no longer is the customer also able to see my visual communication and see how passionate am I about my product and how much I believe, and that conviction, even they are not able to see it on me. So they have to hear it. And similarly, I have to also be, as a sales professional, I should again understand vocal communication from the other side. What kind of voice coming across means what, and if there is a confusion, if suppose many people also have a very many people are not very vocal, that is they don't use the modulation or the tone, so there is a
Sure.
possibility that the customer is sounding very drab and monotonous. Do you like it?
Sure.
Yes, I like it. Do you you're fine? Well, no, I'm not fine. So you don't really understand the emotion behind that voice. Now that is where again comes therefore the importance of sales communication, that how am I therefore going to proceed from there if there is a confusion and I am not able to follow the emotion of the customer on the other side, then what is the next thing? Should I assume or should I do something which can then allow me a better clarity on what the customer is thinking?
Sure. And I think this is where what Deepan said, that when you do the DISC assessment also, you get to understand through the DISC styles, what are the behavioral styles of the customer. You get to understand whether the person is naturally speaking like this, or is he a naturally passionate person. You'll get to understand that also. Deepan, how do you think nonverbal communication and the lack of nonverbal communication, the lack of being in the customer's ecosystem is going to make a difference to the salesperson, and how do you think they need to address it?
So surely it has changed. Life has changed significantly for everybody who is into selling anything. And yet, what it only means is that that's a new skill people need to learn. For example, let me tell you, a lot of coaching, executive coaching,
जिसका भी मन लग रहा है 2 मिनट प्लीज रुक जाइए 2 मिनट रुक जाइए जिसका भी मन लग रहा है कुछ भी करने के लिए हमारी गुफ्तगू खत्म हो जाने दीजिए फिर मन लगा के बात करेंगे आपसे See, I don't want to.
What you can do is
I'm muting
you can
all,
mute and then you can, or I'll unmute myself.
Yes, I'm muting all.
Yeah. No, but
I have muted all. Deepan, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, now I have unmuted myself. Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
So as I was saying, that's only means that that's a new skill. People need to learn. Let me give an example. A lot of executive coaching that I've been into, has been happening over telephone or video conferencing over a period of time. So, some of us are trained to pick up the small, short, nuances in the voice or in small changes in the facial expressions, even in the video. We are able to do that. Now, conventional salespeople, are not trained to do that. So it just means that it is possible to, but it just means that you need to learn that new skill. And it is common sense that anybody who will learn it faster, who is more adaptable, will cross the line faster. So it is change for sure, doable, yes. It is a new skill that somebody needs to learn.
Suhas, the same question to you.
No, I think rightly said by Preetha as well. But I would just like to extend that a little bit and saying, the earlier case, the pre-pandemic time, the sales person was, when he was out of sight, he was out of mind. But today, to be inside the mind, you have several ways to reach, right? So you can be inside if you are in the mind. So I would like to change that sentence earlier. If you're out of sight, you are out of mind. And if you're out of sight meant that you had to be in front of the table of, front of the customer. That means you have to travel. Today, getting onto his mind, there are several ways to reach out. You have several instruments. You have several communication channels to do that.
Very true.
Yeah. So I think that takes a new turn today for a salesperson. So I think even the earlier salesperson who liked to be inside with his customer, if he is able to learn the new nuances and the new normal, the new norm, he's able to be inside in the mind with the customer. So I think in that makes a lot of impact as well.
I think I'm going to steal that caption from you, Suhas, insight to be inside. Right. So I think that would make a nice tagline for something. I'm going to steal it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
But Milind, I'm going to bounce this off you, and then I'm going to open questions from the audience.
Yeah. So, Manvi, now considering how important the auditory aspect has become, okay,
Right.
I think I would go in for another acronym over here, and I call it AMEN.
Amen. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
which is articulation, modulation, enunciation, and neutrality.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
articulation means they need to speak in a manner where the words are distinct from each other. Modulation means the pitch needs to constantly vary so that there's no monotony. Enunciation is the kind of pronunciation that they do. And the last is neutrality, where neutral accent is very important to be able to have a much wider appeal. So I think that's what they need to do.
Well said, Milind. We should have a session on acronyms sometime in the future.
FLAs, 4-letter acronyms.
All right. Okay, Deepan. All right. Let's now have the question and answers. We should have some. We have a couple of people here. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask anybody on the panel, please feel free to ask. We have about 10 minutes, so we'll take those questions. Please unmute yourself.
Can I just go back to Sandeep's question? I think
Yeah, sure.
I had an insight on that.
Okay.
And Sandeep, if you're still there, and I just rephrase it, what you mean to ask is, if sales and everything is going online, do you mean to ask that therefore, whichever industry, the process will be consistent and not change from one industry to another? If that is the question.
Yes, Deepan, you're exactly right in asking that question. And related to that, I just want to elaborate a little bit. When you're talking of individual to institutional, how does that dimension also play in, apart from the industry?
Okay, so thank you for asking that, Sandeep. I'll give my bit and then have somebody else also respond to that. So my answer is yes, no, it will not be the same because there will be different nuances. Let me give an example from 3 industries that I know very well of. For example, the automotive space. When you were buying passenger cars, you would go into the showroom, you would touch and feel, you would drive the car, and you will ask a few questions, and you would decide whether or not you want to buy the car. Of course, you would do a lot of research on the internet too. Now that's not happening. So already, I remember 5 years ago, something that we wanted to do, we wanted to have virtual showrooms. COVID has ensured it happens now, right? So you could be sitting in your home and actually getting to feel how it feels inside a Kia Carnival or Nexon Electric or anything for that matter. And so that's very much a possibility now. So that will change because now see it is online, yes, but the nuances are different because now the person, whoever is selling, needs to set it up, needs to contact, needs to set it up, needs to ensure a right experience, and then you get to feel that. pharma, for example, typically it was, a sales rep meeting the doctors, do the conversation by whatever name we call it, and then you ask for the business. This is changing because now already they are looking at a hybrid model. Doctors are saying, yes, we want to stay connected, but we are not okay with face-to-face. So how can we look at, lesser frequency of face-to-face meeting and yet looking at, online? So they are looking at different platforms. They're looking at seminars or webinars now, as we call it. And therefore, they're looking at a completely different way of connecting. Insurance. I know for a fact that now people are getting trained. Some of the leading insurance companies are training the employees and the agents on how to sell online. So how to connect with people online, how to fix up an online meeting, and then do the fact finder, the needs analysis, the financial planning, everything on a video call and the simplest is a WhatsApp video. You need not have a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams or anything. A WhatsApp call is just right. And that can happen over call, and they're trained on, so it's opened a completely new, so the online thing is consistent, learning certain skills is consistent, but the nuances depending on the product or the service you're selling is different. So also that will be the case when it comes to retail versus institutional. Now, institutional again will be different from retail because you need a relationship, you need to connect more, you need to find out what is happening, what is happening, the tenders and all that. So to that extent, the nuances will be different for different industry. But that's my bit. Anybody else on the panel also
Sandeep,
wants to answer?
are you answered? Is your question answered, Sandeep?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dipen.
Welcome.
Thank you for asking, Sandeep.
Welcome. Anybody else has a question that they'd like to ask?
Hi, Mandip. This is Dinakar here. I'm from Chennai.
Yes, Dinakar.
First of all, I'm really happy to be a part in this discussion. I'm lucky that one of my friends has sent me a link for this being a part of this discussion. I'm really happy to be, listening to all experienced people and legends, like for me, you're a legend. Yes, of course.
Right.
And here I would like to really appreciate Mr. Deepan for giving that one single word that closing is just a consequence.
Okay.
It's something great. And next,
Thank
Mr. Suhas Kulkarni, I'm also taking the caption from you, insight to be inside. Sorry, Mr. Mandip, I'm also taking it.
Welcome. No worries.
And then
I will put a patent for it now.
And my question is to I think Preeta or Pratibha. What is her name? Preeta. My question is to Preeta only. Miss Preeta, I hope you're there, right?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, Miss Preeta, you were telling that the salesperson mindset for adapting to the new norm, right?
Right.
How can we guess or how can we know the prospect's mindset?
All right. Now that's a very, very interesting question that you have asked, and that is where probably each one of us sitting here is equipped to train and coach the sales professional on how to guess the prospect's mindset. It requires certain skills and competencies from within to be able to get into that. Now, can that happen? If I tell you today, do this and it will happen? No, it will not happen. So there is not really an answer that I can give you right now that, do these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps and you will be able to guess the prospect's mindset. No, it has to be developed. There are certain aspects that goes into that whole aspect. When we say, for a simple thing, like we say that when you are listening, the listening does not happen only with your ears.
True.
The listening also happens with your eyes. We have to be very, very alert. Every body part of mine, along with the senses, have to be alert about what's happening. Even that slight, even that word that a customer is using. So, for example, a customer says, that didn't ring, your proposal or whatever you are saying, not sounding well. Now there you have to understand that he's a very auditory kind of a prospect. He's using words which has a very vocal connotations to it, and therefore then as a professional I have to again start changing the linguistic. The way I have to then start talking cannot be visual, cannot be imagine that there is a world. He can't imagine. It's not possible for him to imagine that you have to make things sound so beautiful that it makes the person understand. So there are many things that one has to develop. So I'm very sorry that at this point I will not be able to tell you that these are the 5 things. I wish it was that easy, but it is not that easy actually. I think you could hire any one of us here and we will help you develop that.
Yeah, including the host. Okay, he's also open for.
And don't go by the L1, okay?
Sorry?
Don't go by the L1.
Yeah. Okay. There's a question from Amrita, and Amrita has asked this question on a chat. So I'm going to just share the question. Anybody feels like answering it, please answer it. I might step in, but anybody who can answer this. Amrita's question is: any insights on how does one get a prospective customer / client, in brackets, not a warm, hot contact, interest to peak with regard to my service, considering no face-to-face interaction in current scenario? I asked her a question, what industry are you in? And she replied saying event management and soft skills training. Event management, I think unless you're doing online events, if you're looking at event management in the traditional context, it might be you may have to wait a little while. But if anybody would like to answer the question on soft skills training, how could you help Amrita to get a person interested in her service of being a soft skills trainer, considering no face-to-face? Deepan can go ahead.
Yeah, I think 3 of us. So I'll let Pritha go first, then Milind, and then I'll go.
And
Okay.
Milind also raised his hand. So
yeah, anybody can take it. I think any one of us can take it, but yeah.
good. Each one of us will chip in a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, I will, Amrita, I'd like to help you completely from my own experience of how I am doing it currently, being a coach and being a soft skill or a behavioral trainer myself. I understand the question that you are asking and the challenge that you are facing currently. I rely heavily on digital marketing. Now, that is something which I will probably, my advice to you will be getting yourself visible. And that is very, very important to get any person. If we are not talking about an interaction with the customer, and if it is only about first getting a prospect interested in me and trying, and I want them to approach me, then yes, getting myself visible on the digital platform and creating that kind of a brand, a personal and a professional and a brand for myself is first and foremost very, very important. And the second aspect is, if you are already interacting, that is, you have already connected with the prospect, then there are these certain things that I very strongly believe in, and that is called script. The script that you are using to connect with a prospect. So the first connect, whether it is on the phone or you are writing an email, what is the script that you have used? Understand one thing, we receive hundreds and thousands of these calls from marketing people saying that, is it a good time to talk? Most of the time, from the tone of the call only, we know this is not a good time for me to talk or entertain that particular call. Now, what will make me, if you put yourself in the customer's shoes, what will make you get interested? If that person uses a script or says something that is of my interest. So everybody is interested in only one aspect, what's in it for me. So that script also needs to highlight the WIIFM. It needs to highlight that. The first call that you are talking, that needs to highlight it. The language that you are using constantly, talking in the terms of other person's interest, will get the other person interested in you. That is my mantra.
Okay.
Pritha, much. That is quite insightful. Sorry, that's Amrita. Hi, Pritha. Thanks. I think it drove home. The point drove home. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You have to listen. You should listen to the other experts here. They are going to give you even wonderful points now.
Of course, waiting to hear.
Yeah. So Amrita, see, there are 2 sides to any sales that happens. Okay, so one is the sales side and the other is the buying part of it. So the buying part is very important. What we need to really focus on is what are the buying motives of the customer. So, there are motives like profit, esteem, convenience, envy, fear. So it's critical to be able to get into a conversation where before we talk about our product, before we talk about our service, we completely are in sync with what the customer is actually seeking. And once we are in sync with that, then we can validate their feelings. And after that, having done this kind of what is called persuasion, we can then deliver our sales script to them. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, Deepan?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank
I would
you.
like to add, and actually most of it is covered. So what I would say is digital, of course, presence is critical. I think the mantra is to be ubiquitous. Ubiquity is the key. You know, are you present everywhere? I mean, that is one. And so that is extremely critical. And you know, are you even present in the relevant circles and relevant places? And do you have referrals? So, for example, LinkedIn has a very beautiful tool, and they're not paying me to say this, but I'll still say that. So, if you go to LinkedIn, there is a sales
Sales
it's here.
navigator.
Sales navigator, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
Sales
and
Navigator.
in that page, in the sales navigator, you will find the resources tab. Under resources, you will find social selling index, and it's free. If you do your social selling index, you know what percentage of people you kind of compete with, and so you constantly strive to. Now, if it is low, if you are in the, let's say, top 1 or 2%, that's great. If you are lesser than that, then you need to do something. Change the way you are, what you are sharing there, what you're talking there, whom you are interacting with. Is anything needs to change about the description of your profile? And that is one thing about LinkedIn. Similarly, one can use different, social media platforms or anything else, and ubiquity is the key. So be there and referrals.
So
Okay.
thank you.
Amrita, Suhas, you want to say something? Otherwise,
No, for me, just a couple of things. I think he hit the right thing about the social selling index. But I think earlier there used to be a kind of a personal social platform and a kind of a professional social platform. Today, the line between these two are a very blurred line. So it's no longer personal, professional. It's one. So in the current state of events, I think you got to take the person as a whole, and there is no real difference. Differentiating between these two. So you should take the social selling index very rightly said, Deepan. Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to second that. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, can I just say something to Amrita before we allow your question? Yeah. Amrita, I'm sorry that everybody is answering your question. It's not the way I intended it, but let me just say one thing, and this is something I have found when I have dealt a lot with soft skills trainers. Business development and training delivery are two separate skill sets. Okay, a lot of trainers are very happy to deliver training if somebody can get the business for them.
Right.
It's not very easy to get business because it requires a different set of things for you to do, like prospecting, like cold calling, like follow up. Whether you do it in the traditional method or you do it in the new technology method, it doesn't matter. We've all said it. That's not changed. So that requires a different mindset. How equipped are you to do those things before you can close and then deliver a training? And remember one thing: if you are one person doing both the things, then it's very difficult to be training 10-15 days in a month and doing business development also, because there is a cycle. Business development has a cycle and training has its own cycle. So either you outsource the business development to somebody and tie up with a person who's good at business development, so you get the training programs and then you can deliver them if that is your expertise. But if you feel you want to be a one-person show, one-man show, then be prepared to burn the midnight oil for a few months, because then the seeds that you plant will generate, they will create, like Peter said, create the environment, create the ecosystem, be present, be visible. Everybody's saying it, right? And there are, like I said, like I tell people, there are 3 laws of agriculture we must always remember. You must plant before you can reap. You plant in one season, you reap in another season, and you always reap much more than what you plant. So be planting. This is a very, very good time to plant. It's very, very fertile. The ground is extremely fertile. All the hunters are farmers. Everybody's at home. All right. You can get anybody. You can ping anybody. You can connect anybody. You can send a LinkedIn request to anybody. People are reading. People are looking. People are connecting. People are accepting. Plant like crazy at this time. All right. And if you can hold on, keep your just nose above water level and hold on without showing that you're gasping, it will pay. Trust me, it will pay. All right. Is that answered?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, Sumit.
Thank you for asking, Amrita.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. Yes, Sumit. Sorry.
Yeah. Hi, Sumit here. I have a question for Suhas and also one question for Preeta. So I'll start with the question to Suhas. Suhas, my question to you is, since you specifically mentioned that you are into the B2B business world, and the kind of business you are is high capital equipments, what I could hear from the discussions earlier on. So my question to you is that, do you think that in the current scenario, where we're talking about uncertainties in the business world, and the economy also not really showing up in terms of the growth, and many of the sectors are really taking a backseat in terms of the capital investments. So in this scenario, do you think for the salespeople, it makes sense to really stick around with the existing customers? That's the customer retention, rather than really looking at developing the new ones, because the sales effort that goes in developing the new customers is much higher than the retention on the existing customer. So what is, in your perspective, specific to the B2B business, because you know what are the kind of challenges B2B business offers. So that's my question to Suhas. And my question to Preeta is that, where we talk about there's always a silver linings in this pandemic situation, and that's to understand the crisis, the challenge. There's a birthplace for innovation. So do you think from that perspective, it's a good time to experiment new offerings to customers, especially in a B2C market segments? Yeah.
Yes, Suhas. The first question was for you.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I was on mute. So
no
thanks, Sumit. So yeah, specifically in the B2B industry, and I did not tell you the industry segment that I am in. I will tell you that later as well, because especially in the kind of segment that we are in, unfortunately or fortunately, we saw that the customers actually enjoyed growth in spite of having less labor, because most of the labor moved away from the factories and operations. Have 60% of the labor. That was number one. And when, of course, the pandemic started, people did tend to say, okay, let's put off the capex investment right now, and let's look at it after 3 months. But then they realized, okay, that's not going to happen. There is always the March deadline to beat, right? So to capitalize, right? So and most of the time the capital investment is made so that they meet the March 31st deadline, and that deadline was not going to be met if they're going to make a decision later. The other thing is, if you just step back a little bit and look at the global scenario, what also happened in the meantime was there was a lot of manufacturing that moved out of China into Southeast Asia and also our country, right? So there was also a huge opportunity for people to start investing even without going there, right? So investing in machines, even going to a certain place, by knowing that they have certain partners who can help them set up that operations, was the second thing. The segment that I'm in packaging, and packaging did not in some sense suffer that much, especially in the food industry. So everybody today still wants the milk pouches outside their door when they get up in the morning. Everybody still wants a packet of bread, and that needs packaging. The milk needs packaging. Edible oil today in India is all packaging. Unfortunately, the garment industry took a hit because people don't buy new clothes during pandemic. So the garment industry took a little bit of hit, but manufacturing didn't slow down in packaging especially, whereas actually the packaging industry benefited a lot, especially for the eco-friendly packaging. And that's a big boon that's been coming up in the last 3 months. It gave us a lot of time to rethink the whole business. I don't know whether I answered your question, Sumit.
Yeah. Sumit?
Yes, to some extent, but my question was, does it really make sense for the sales team to really look at customer retention, or do they really go out all out to get the new customer acquisition?
Yeah, I think so. 2 ways. So
I can also add, Suhas, whenever you finish, I'll also add a few thoughts.
Sure. Yeah. So we have both sets of customers. Obviously, you have current customers you want to hold on to and still continue building that relationship. And how do you create new customers? Creating new customers in the new norm is obviously just like Preeta said, when we have webinars, right? And earlier you used to have expos. And today, one of the largest expos in our business closed down and did not have the expo at all because of COVID. And it said that we will do it in April 2021, but last week they announced probably it will move to 2023. So today we have virtual expos happening, and they're the same companies creating virtual expos. It allows us to engage and also create new territories, or maybe meet new opportunities.
Okay. Sumit, may I add a few things from experience? They may not be specific to the capital goods industry, but I know one thing for a fact, that when an organization spends a lot of money on CapEx, they're very unlikely to repeat that order immediately in the near future. So they may have some ups, they may have some add-on machinery or some add-on things which they could phase out, but it's very unlikely that they will invest that kind of money all over again in the same financial year, because the machinery has to run, and you have to have its life cycle. Having said that, there are some philosophies. When I used to work with JP Morgan, we were taught that it takes $2 to hold on to a customer, and it takes $11 to get a new customer. So holding on to a customer is better. Todd Duncan's book called High Trust Selling, in the book he says that if you want more business, have fewer customers so that you can build relationships. If I also go by another industry, which is the network marketing industry, there are two concepts called width and depth. If you want profitability, have options. If you want stability, go down. That means build deeper with your customer. Go into it, find out what they want more, cross-sell, upsell, do lots of stuff. But if you want options and you don't want to rely on a couple of customers, have width, have more options where you can go, have places where you can go. All right. Otherwise, if a customer knows that you're dependent on him for your month-end closing, boy, are you in trouble? Are you in trouble? Trust me about that.
Thanks, Mani. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right. And your second question was to Preeta.
Yes. And so, Sumit, to answer your question, it also has, I will take a few things from your first question also here. Now, in the B2C, you're primarily focusing on the B2C here when you ask me that question. In this current time, yes, an innovation was long due. When I'm saying, when you're asking about innovation, there was one particular innovation that was long due, and that was moving away from sales funnel. That particular innovation was long due. And when I am consulting with organizations, most organizations are now realizing the importance of moving away from sales funnel. Now, when I'm saying we have to move away from sales funnel, that means I'm also saying that in the current time, the focus has to be more on the existing customer than acquiring new customers. All right. Now, what we need to understand is that in the current, if we take the current situation into consideration, then the objective of any organization is of how to not become, how to not go worse from bad, bad to worse. That is something that they have to prevent. And there has been many years of investment in terms of time, cost, energy in retaining certain customers. And this is the time to reap the benefit from that existing customer. Now, why I'm saying we need to move away from sales funnel, if we understand the sales funnel, what happens, and that's probably the one disadvantage that a sales funnel has. When a sales funnel, it ends with the customer. So the minute a prospect turns into a customer, that's it, move to the next one. Now, therefore, what is important currently is to move to a concept called as flywheel. Now, we all know a flywheel. What is the work of a flywheel? Now, in the flywheel, the customer is at the center. In a sales funnel, customer is the end product. That is the end result. But in a flywheel, customer is at the center. And then what I do in a flywheel, I apply some force from the top. If you remember, in our childhood, we used to have this big wheel, which we used to use with some stick on the onside, and it used to go. Now that flywheel depends on two aspects. One is how much force am I applying? Now that force is in terms of the product. It is in terms of the marketing that we are doing. So that is the force. And it also talks about how much friction am I able to reduce for that customer. In the current time, when we are all getting into online, the reduction of friction is the usage. How easily am I allowing my customers to use my product? For example, Amazon, the biggest example of using flywheel as a concept, a one-click checkout. That's a convenience. Now, if I have an online and I have a checkout counter, and in that, I am asking my person, click here, after that, click there, then you go to that. It is increasing my inconvenience. It is not giving me the convenience, so I am not a happy and a engaged customer. The idea of a flywheel, the concept, it's a little in-depth. So when we are getting into when we do consulting, we have to get into a lot of aspects of an organization has to be taken into consideration. But then what we understand and what we try and say is, take the customer, the existing customer, from just being happy or satisfied to delight. And all your market share and wallet share problem will be solved by this customer only. So that is one innovation that I would say that an organization should definitely think of. I hope I have answered your question, Sumit.
Sure, Preeta. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
All right.
Very well said, Preeta.
Very well said, Preeta. Thank you so much. Love the concept of the flywheel and the force and the friction interrelationship. Thank you so much for that. Really interesting. I think move away from sales funnel towards what Deepak Kotak, I think Preeta has answered it. Move away from sales funnel to a flywheel. That is the question that was asked. Yes, and I don't think it's not only an innovation, I think it's a disruption, and I think it's a good disruption. So I think it's interesting. All right, so thank you, everybody. Thank you to the panel. Thank you, Preeta. Thank you, Milind. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you,
so
Suhas.
much.
Before we end, I have my favorite book, Og Mandino, How I Became the Greatest Salesman in the World. I love quoting from this book, and I think anybody who's in sales or wanting to do well in sales must read this book. There are a lot of books, but this one is really good. And in this book, he ends with a prayer, and a few lines of the prayer before we log off. He says, "You have taught the lion and the eagle how to hunt and prosper with teeth and claw. Teach me how to hunt with words and prosper with love, so that I may be a lion among men and an eagle in the marketplace." Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you, and thank you for your participation. Good day, stay home, stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Marisa.
Mark.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.